future, we will need to put some kind of a tax or fee on that charge for per kilowatt hour, even if it's given away at a restaurant or hotel or some other retail establishment. We feel that the tax should be collected even if there's not a kilowatt hour charge levied to that car owner. Does that make sense, everyone? Does anybody have any heartburn on that?
I just want to add, if you look at the very ending of every sentence, Catherine put a little asterisk. If you look at the very, denoting there's a conflicting recommendation on that finding. So, and that's what we just kind of tried to spend some time last night and today helping us winnow those down. We see them, we'll strike one of the two or three that do conflict.
So we haven't heard any opposition in the room from any of the industry people on changing from time sold to kilowatt hour sold. So this would be a change in law. If this goes to legislation, we would begin to charge for electricity to be put in these cars by the kilowatt, not by the time. Currently, I think most cars are being charged by the minute or by the hour. So this would be a recommendation that we convert that to a kilowatt rate. And we're not setting the rate. That would be done solely by the retailer, whoever is selling it. So is everybody good on that? I think this is very similar to what Chairman Powell had in his legislation last session, correct? Okay.
Do you need a motion on that?
If there's no other discussion, we'll entertain one, but I'll
I just wanted to
yield to Chairman Parsons over
Yeah, I
here.
just want to make sure that I'm clear about this. Now, number 3 is to adopt a language that Chairman Powell had in his bill last year, which we know that had the agreement of Georgia Power, the different energy suppliers in the state. There's an agreement on that. Are we voting on number 1 and 2 and excluding number 3? I just want to make sure I know before we take it.
We will exclude number 2
Okay.
because it's duplicative. But number 3, it's somewhat similar, but it's to allow commercial EV service providers to bill for charging. This would be for anyone in addition to the commercial providers. So.
The only concern I had there, Chairman Parsons, it's just that one part of House Bill 1322, not the entire bill. I think it kind of narrows it down to just that one part.
Well, I mean,
Because
I'm
the other
the
parts-
author of that bill, but I mean, I know we had agreement on that language in that, on that language in that bill during the session from all the players in it, so that's
Yeah.
what I want to make
Okay.
sure.
Right.
And of course, my concern, I think the other chairman's concern has been primarily for the commercial, free market people anyway. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure that we're
Right.
looking after them because they're the ones who will eventually, just like gasoline stations, are going to be the ones who provide all this.
Let me remind everyone that all of these recommendations were sent to us by you. Each recommendation that's here is basically a direct input from the committee. So that's why some of them are similar. It just depends on who sent it and how they worded it. So we will vote. We will go down the list, and we hopefully will vote yes on one and maybe no on the other so we can get rid of the duplication that way. So we'll have a motion for number 1 with the amendment that I've offered a few minutes ago if it pleases the committee. So
Free electricity for all.
so if somebody wants to make a motion to amend number 1 with the words "or given away" at the end, we'll entertain that.
I'd make a motion to amend it or given away added to the end.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now we'll take a vote on the recommendation number 1 as amended. So all in favor of recommendation number 1, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Number 2, I think we've established that it's not necessary any longer, so if we could, if it pleases the committee, we'll make a motion to deny that one.
Make a motion to deny number 2.
Motion and second. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Number 3, the study committee recommends legislative action to adopt language from House Bill 1322, introduced in the 2022 legislative session, which clarifies current law to allow commercial EV service providers to bill for charging stations based on the kilowatt hour. What's the pleasure of the committee?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt recommendation number 3. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, the study committee finds that no alterations need to be made to the Territorial Act. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by,
I'd like to highlight that number 4 and 5 are very similar.
4 and 5 may be similar. We'll get to that unless it changes the outcome of the vote. So let's look at number 5 real quick, if y'all don't mind. The study committee suggests that the alterations to the Territorial Act be made in a prudent and judicious manner. Those are good legal words, aren't they?
Chairman, I think that number 5 gives you the opportunity that if you need to address it, so there's no ambiguity in the Territorial Service Act, that you could, but we know we don't, we recommend against opening up the Territorial Service Act in any great capacity. I think number 5 would be more prudent than doing number 4, just because we might have to clarify something and let legislative council help us with that. And we work on accepting number 5.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
What number are you, Madam?
I'm number 2.
Number 2. You have the floor.
Number 5 suggests that this committee or the Georgia legislature wouldn't do something in a prudent or judicious manner. I believe that everything y'all do is in a prudent and judicious manner.
Thank you.
So I think
Thank
it
you.
should stand
Do you
alone
always agree with that?
as its own. I believe that it should stand alone as its own separate recommendation for that
Okay.
purpose.
All right. That's good comment. Chairman Powell, you're number 3. You have the floor.
Yes, sir. You know, number 4, and I go back during the session when we were dealing with this issue in Chairman Parsons' committee, there were those who said that the Territorial Act needed to be amended to allow for the resale of power. Then Ms. Pridemore had said I think it's Ms. Pridemore had said several times that it's not necessary. So I would think that number 4 needs to go by the wayside. Because as you all know, that the legislature, we can put in a bill to move January between July and August to cool the summertime down. But, bottom line is, if we're going to put in bills, it's necessary. So I think number 5 would be the proper
Okay.
I agree.
Any other comments? Let me just say this. We are not drafting a new constitution here today. Do y'all realize that? This is a study committee recommendation. So what we're saying in number 4 is that this committee finds no additional needs are needed, or additional changes are needed for the purpose of electrifying vehicles in Georgia. We're not saying that we don't need to change the Territorial Act ever in the future for any reason. We're just pertaining to this study committee and the work that we've done over the last several months. So
Mr. Chairman, I move to abandon number 4 and adopt number 5.
we have a motion to approve 4, abandon 4. And we'll take care of separate, we'll take 5 separately. So a motion is to delete number 4. Is there a second to that
Second.
motion?
Mr. Chairman, there's already a motion on the floor to adopt number 4.
You're correct. Who made that motion?
We both did simultaneously, so one can be the motion, one can be the second.
Have discussion.
We're still under discussion then, so your motion's out of order at this time, unless somebody repeals that motion.
I just want to,
Oh, sorry.
Chairman Parsons, go ahead.
Oh, if I may, on this number 4, I would just say, even though we may be talking about, even though it doesn't say this, talking about the electrification and what comes out of the study committee, we still don't know for a sure. We can't say for a fact that we wouldn't have to amend that. I mean, I don't have any plans to. I don't know that we would, but we shouldn't be limiting ourselves on any kind of legislation that we might do, just like Chairman Alan Powell said. No, I don't think we ought to say no, that either we don't need to make changes to the Territorial Act in relation to this or into anything right now, because we don't know what might come up through the legislative process.
Thank you, Chairman
Sorry to be
Parsons.
late.
What's your number, Chairman Walker?
12.
Number 12. You have the floor.
I've been in the John K. Wilkinson Dining Hall at the FFA camp.
Bless you.
It was
But,
good.
What if we amended the motion to add after the word made, comma, at this time, comma, to the territorial act? The study committee finds that no alterations need to be made, comma, at this time, to the territorial act. And wouldn't
Okay.
that kind of take care of 4 and 5, sort of?
Suits me. Is that the right wording in the right place in that sentence? Or would you put it at the end?
I would add at the end, I would just say.
After
made
territorial
to
act at this
territorial
time?
At this time, if that's.
Yeah,
Does that sound okay with you?
yeah.
So is that a motion to amend that?
Well, I don't know the parliamentary
We'll get
procedure.
a second in a second. So I think according to the legal counsel, we would add at this time after the territorial act at the end of the sentence. So,
agree to the gentleman's motion.
That's what I had put something similar down here to make it, as you suggested.
so that's a motion to amend number 4, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Seconded by Co-Chairman Jaspers. Okay, any other discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment to item 4, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 1 opposed. 2 opposed. Okay, the motion carries. Now, to vote for recommendation number 4 as amended, we have a motion and a second. It's been amended. All in favor of recommendation number 4, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? See a show of hands. All in favor, say, raise your right or left hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4.
I voted.
You voted.
Yeah, you counted me.
Yeah. We need to start over.
Oh,
You
okay.
can't
I can't
vote. Unless you want to relinquish your title.
Okay.
Let's start over. All in favor of the amended version, line 4, raise your hand. If you're in favor of 4. Now we have 3 yeses. Any opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4. The motion carries.
No, it fails.
The motion failed, not my bad. Headed north. All right, that failed. So now we can go to 5. Do we need to read it again? The study committee suggests that alterations to the territorial act be made in a prudent and judicious manner. Is there a motion?
I think you put any change.
The way it reads right now is the study committee suggests that alterations to the territorial act be made in a prudent and judicious manner. Chairman, again, you're the one who advocated for this one earlier.
And the only thing I'd say is if we're going to make them, because you may not need to make them.
So-
I'm going to leave that to our legislative council. They're much more attuned to that than some of us.
Is there a motion for number 5? Is there a motion?
needed.
Chairman Powell, are you number 4?
Yes, I move that we
Motion to approve number 5. Is there a second? Seconded by Senator Ginn. Any other discussion? All in favor of suggestion number 5, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? 1 no? 2 noes? Okay, did you get that? All right, so that was a good exercise. We're through the first group. Let's move in number 6. Chairman Jaspers, won't you pick up there and
Okay,
facilitate
and
our
in
discussion?
number 6, it's about the charging stations and Georgia Power and EMC's relationship with them. And before we get started with this, you'll notice that if you've looked at them carefully, 6 and 7 and 9 are very, very similar. And we'll need to pick one. And so I guess we need to read them so everybody hears them. And number 6, the study committee recommends legislative action to restrict electric suppliers under the jurisdiction of the Public Service Commission for the purpose of setting rates from participating in the business of EV charging, except through a separate deregulated subsidiary. So you look at, see the star beside it. Number 7, the study committee recommends legislative action to restrict electric suppliers from participating in the business of EV charging, except through a separate deregulated subsidiary. 8 was different to me, and then 9 I felt, is that right? Yeah, 9, the study committee recommends legislative action prohibiting an electric supplier from allocating or recovering from the ratepayers of the electric supplier the cost to provide, own, or operate, or maintain electric charging equipment.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
if I might, the big difference in those is those that are regulated by the Public Service Commission, that's gonna be Georgia Power. When we talk about, like at number 9, we talk about an electric supplier, that could be MEAG cities or could be the EMCs.
Right.
For me, there's a little bit difference in that Georgia Power is a investor-owned company that's working for its stockholders, whereas the cities and the EMCs are owned by the members they serve, and they have a different structure in their guidance. It's done, they do a lot of community service, public service things just for their membership. And so for me, I'd point that out as a difference.
Sure.
Because I've worked for
Right.
several of these, said they owed my tenure. And I would think that we would want to only work on those that are going to be into an investor-owned, that would be, example, what you started off with on number 6.
6 and 7.
6
yeah.
and 7.
Yeah, looked at my notes. I read them wrong. Frank, I shouldn't have, to be chairman. I should have not included 9 in my discussion there. You're right.
That's the big difference for our committee members.
Yeah, so I felt when I looked at it that 6 and 7 were very similar.
So the difference is just the clause specified under the jurisdiction.
Would you like to say that?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Too much stuff here.
Committee members, if you would look at 6 and 7, the main difference is that number 6 includes a clause that specifies that the electric suppliers are under the jurisdiction of the PSC for the purpose of setting rates. That's included in number 6 and not in number 7.
Okay. Thank you.
Chairman Jeffers, you got a question?
Yes, sir.
So I had a question on that.
Yeah.
Number 5?
6 and 7.
No,
Oh,
your mic number.
Your mic number.
Yeah.
Number 3?
Yeah, I don't know.
You're lit up.
I think I'm 4.
Yeah, you're good. You're on.
The last 2 words of both of those paragraphs say a separate deregulated subsidiary. Now, what do we mean by that? If they're deregulated, who's going to be able to set their rates? I mean, we're going to be requiring all the EMCs in Georgia Power to set up deregulated subsidiaries to sell to vehicles, basically, charging stations, but these both would remove any regulation on rates. One of them could charge $100 a kilowatt hour, another $1. Is that what we want?
7 will get the EMCs, since the 6 gets only Georgia Power. For me, the EMCs are owned by those memberships. They're cooperative, so they're those members there, and they have a board of directors. So they may try to do something to serve their members, and you think about the hinterlands, as we used to call it. They may want to do something to, hey, provide that as a service for their members.
But these sales are to mobile vehicles. They might belong to somebody from New York City,
That's right.
not a resident or a member of wherever they're purchasing the power.
Chairman Powell, you had a comment?
I do. Yeah, and I think that these 2 issues, they bear to some discussion that was prompted during the last legislative session in Chairman Parsons' committee. And that was that one of the power providers, suppliers, seemed to believe they wanted to be into the business of selling retail to the public. And there was some concern that we had to that. One was that, the primary purpose of whether it's Georgia Power, the EMCs, and MEAG, and they're the suppliers, and they sell to the public. This gets them into competition with the retail businesses that are going to supplant the gas sales eventually to allow them to do that. And at that time, the discussion came up to this was that Georgia Power especially said that they wanted to be able to sell to underserved areas of the state. And the reason, that's where the notion of the deregulated subsidiary, almost the way Georgia Power does gas right now under a second type of a tier. Because in that discussion, and it was bipartisan in the discussion in that Chairman Parsons committee, was that everybody felt that they did not want the power companies to be jumping into business, one, in competition with, and secondly, was to put it under the rate base for folks who may not necessarily, they don't want their household and their business bills showing an investment into this. Now, as a caveat to that, I want to make this comment. After all the hearings that we've had and all the discussions and the testimony given, I have come to the mind that what I saw with all the folks who are going to be providing chargers, I don't think we're going to have anywhere in the state of Georgia that's going to be underserved. I think that with all the BB money and all of that, you're going to see these chargers everywhere. And I think to the point, at some point, that while I don't personally believe that the EV is going to be the total way of the future, it's only going to be a part of it. But at one point, I'm more concerned, we're going to see people that are going to go out there and they're going to have all these chargers that one day we're going to turn around, it's going to look like popsicle sticks dotting the horizon from one end of the state to the other. So that being said, I think the power companies, and it was the will of the Chairman Parsons Committee, was that the power companies need to stick to their business, and that's to supply power to the folks who are going to sell it to these secondary EVs. But if they have decided that there's some underserved areas that maybe nobody's going to serve, then let them do it, but let them do it under that third party.
I also know, I remember, I'm not on that committee, but there was some discussion, Chairman Powell, about a right of first refusal that was offered up to allow Georgia Power, or that's, I guess who we're really talking about, the ability to, in an underserved areas, to there to be that question thrown out there. And if there wasn't, then they could go into it.
Right.
To kind of move it along.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
We've heard a lot about this over the last few months, and I believe we would be the only state in the United States that would prohibit the power companies from doing this, to provide these chargers and this service to the customers. And I do not believe it sends the proper message around the country for Georgia to restrict the power companies. I mean, they're in the business of selling electricity. Why would we want to restrict them and require them to set up subsidiaries? And I think Chairman Cowsert had some really interesting concerns about that. And I just think if we recommend this today, I think it's the wrong message to send. So I hope we'll turn this down and not adopt this language.
Mr. Chairman. I'm on number 9. To Chairman Gooch's comments, I don't think anybody here is attempting to prohibit Georgia Power from providing electricity. What we're doing is we're allowing them to do it, but they have to meet certain standards. And to Chairman Cowsert's comment on the deregulated, I think if they set it up as a separate entity, then it would be deregulated, as opposed to the regulations that the utility is under with the PSA now. By the fact that they break it off and set it up, it is not the same utility that it is if they do set up a separate subsidiary So I think that does show the difference there, and because I was confused like you were when you first read the word deregulated in both of those. But I don't think anything in here, and I will point out to the committee and to everybody in the room, I do understand that I'm an ex officio member of this committee. But I think it does not in any way hinder Georgia Power from being able to provide this. I think the concerns that I get from my constituents, and I'm sure other people, is that Georgia Power invests in multiple businesses, and we pay for those investments each and every month, and with very little voice in how that money's invested. And then when there is a loss or a downturn somewhere, they tend to go to the PSC to make up for that loss. And so I think everybody's being above board here, but I do not think that anybody on this committee is attempting to put Georgia Power out there as an outlier in the United States, saying that they cannot provide power for EVs. We are absolutely not doing that.
Chairman Parsons.
Senator Robertson made my point very well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We were talking about this, and this is probably the most contentious part of the recommendations that we'll look at. And I asked Senator Gooch, I said, on this particular one, because there is a difference on the committee, and it is striking that we put both of them in there. And I made a little comment that I wrote this morning. I said, if we can put, and Catherine would figure out how to do it right, make it look right. I said, in this section, there's a significant disagreement between the members on the recommendations, would be 6, 7, and 10, as you'll read in a minute. And we find that the legislative process will need to be used to determine which is best for our state. That's something to throw out there.
I've only got one thing to say in this particular case. We're not saying that Georgia Power or the EMCs can't sell power. We're just saying they can't compete against the free market system. And this whole idea is that we're fixing to gut this, basically a whole industry of billions of dollars in investment. That's for the motoring public, the C-store operations and all of that, to supplant their motor fuel with EVs. Now, Georgia Power, EMCs, MEAG, or whoever, they don't need to be in competition against the free market. And that's where, during the session, the language came up about a third party, that they could sell through a third party because of the sheer nature of the companies. They're the manufacturers, they're the distributors, so should they be the retailers in a retail setting? And that's the bottom, they shouldn't be able to compete.
Ms. Pridemore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm number 2. I do want it to be a part of the record, just because as the only member of this study committee representing the Georgia Public Service Commission. So there is a thorough vetting in every rate of return, and every financial and business aspect of Georgia Power. It is by legislation. It happens at the commission. I'm currently on a lunch break to be over here for a few minutes with y'all while we're in the middle of rebuttal on the 2022 Georgia Power rate case. Members of this committee may not agree with the decisions of the Georgia Public Service Commission, but they are legal and they are binding. Georgia Power does not invest in businesses and expect a rate of return or their customers to be able to pay for it. Every aspect of their business is thoroughly reviewed. And I want to extend an invitation like I did to my friend here, Chairman Powell. If you have questions about the regulatory environment, the responsibilities of regulators, or what the Georgia Public Service Commission does, I encourage you to come visit us. Come spend time, come understand our rate process, our hearing process. We work on a rate case for a year. We implement a year. We like to say we recover for a year while we work on the next one. So I want to encourage you, if you have questions, reach out to me. But there is nothing about Georgia Power's business that isn't thoroughly reviewed.
And thank you for inviting Chairman Powell to speak to your group the other day. I know he enjoyed that.
It was
Chairman-
an eye-opening experience.
Stopped the proceeding and allowed him all the time that he wished.
Here. Chairman Ginn.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but one of the things that, you know, the reason we're number one in the nation for business is because we allow the free market enterprise to work. Putting something into a rate base for an investor-owned utility to compete with a private individual, private company out there would not be favorable to the free market system. And for me, this is where, as long as it's not in the rate base, and that's why it's breaking it out as a separate deregulated portion of Georgia Power or whatever investor-owned you want to look at, that's not an issue. But when you allow it to go in the rate base, everybody in Georgia has a stake in that, and that's not fair competition.
Chairman Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree a lot with Chairman Powell's sentiment that the utilities, whether they be the Georgia Power or the EMCs, need to give the private sector space and room to build this stuff out and don't need to be in competition with the private sector. However, I think we are so new into this, and we don't really know how it's going to play out and how it's going to develop and how prevalent EVs are even going to be, how prevalent charging stations are going to be. And I don't want I don't want to subsidize the charging stations particularly, but I do want my EMCs, for example, if they want to put one at their office in Dudley or their office in Vienna or their office in Reynolds, where I don't think you're going to have a quick trip doing it, or even their, I just think we're so early in this process that I'm reluctant to put restrictions on the development of charging stations this early in the ball game. But I do understand that private business owners need some certainty, and if they're going to make a big investment in charging stations, they don't want to do that and then the next, few months or year or whatever, the public utility come next door to them and undercut them. I get all that. The sentiment of this I agree with, but I just feel like it's too early to put any kind of restrictions till we see how it plays out. And so I could not support 6 or 7.
Chairman Powell.
Just as a follow-up behind my good friend Senator Walker, number 6, basically the difference in 6 and 7 is 6 says that the power company is regulated by PSC, 7 says it's not. Basically 7 would exempt the EMCs, and they could pretty well do what they're doing anyway. 6 would only deal with, it would prohibit Georgia Power. So I think if I understood what you were saying, that you would be in favor of 7, but not 6. No, you'd be in favor of 6, not 7. Yeah, you'd be in favor of 7, not 6. All right, or am I just backwards?
So 6,
Six, not
Backwards?
seven.
Well, ain't nothing unusual about that.
Last comment.
You think EMC should be able to, because they're responsible for their rate, but their rate,
I do think there's
they're investor owned.
a significant difference between
Yeah.
EMCs and Georgia Power. However, I'm not ready to restrict either one of them until, if I saw a bill and it had some sort of first right of refusal, I don't know how that would read. I might could support that, but just to blanket say they've got to set up a subsidiary to be able to put in an EV charging station, I'm not ready to do that this early.
Senator Lucas. It's on.
The problem I have with it is power companies are in the business of providing power. If you got an EV charging station, you got to go to a power company to get power to that charging station. When we look at it, and I've always represented the urban area, but now I got rural communities. We don't have racetracks. We might have a jet service station. The problem is, what do you do when people are traveling in rural Georgia? What do you do? If nobody comes in to do it, then the power entity has the resources to go and put one in those communities where they're not served. I would assume that most car dealers, even if they're in rural communities, won't have a charging station because by their contract with it, whether it's GMC or Ford, they're gonna have to do it. But I cannot see us putting a restriction on a power company to supply electricity to an EV charging station. I thought by us forming the committee and doing it, that somehow the private industry would get with the power companies to work out a deal. I just don't see us trying to make a decision when we gonna be the deal maker. I do have a problem with that. I mean, as Commissioner said, they thoroughly vet the rates, just like the overrun down at Plant Vogel and everything. They vented that. And the loss was taken by Georgia Power. The loss, it was taken by Georgia Power. And so for us to legislatively put this in place, I think sends the wrong message. I think that what we're doing and what we're looking at will give the incentive to racetrack or anybody else to set a deal with the power source that they're going to get their electricity from.
Pridemore, could you wait 1 minute?
Go ahead. Period. Thank you, Senator. Period. Is that right? Senator Gooch.
I'd like to, if I could, ask the committee members to consider tabling items 6 through 11. And the reason is I believe this issue is going to take a lot more discussion than we're able to provide here today. This is a very important issue, and I think making any recommendations at this point could put us in the wrong path. So therefore, I make a motion, we table recommendations 6 through 11.
Second.
There's a second.
We have a second.
Yeah.
A discussion, Chairman
Yeah,
Parsons.
thank you. I would just like to say, I don't think we should table them. I think we should move ahead. I mean, first of all, we're not voting, this is not legislation we're voting on, we're voting on recommendations. But if we do this, this is a lot of the crux of what came out of Representative Chairman Powell's bill. You know, we passed that unanimously. I wasn't out of this room, wasn't just like it on the other side of the Capitol. We passed out unanimously out of that committee, which is very unusual for that to happen. We set it on the rules, and the reason that nothing happened then was that we were going to have the study committee to study this, and we needed to study it further. Well, that was back in probably early March, late February when we passed that out. And now it's late November, and we've been studying this now for a good while in different places over that time. And it seems to me, as far as just recommendations, we should go ahead and recommend it. And among this, at least that's number 6. This just applies to Georgia Power. And Senator Lucas and I were both on the House committee back, gosh, that was 96, 97, something like that, when we did the same thing relating to a subsidiary for AGL. Remember when we did the deregulation, but they could do it through a subsidiary. That's what we did for them. And that's the same thing. We're not saying that Georgia Power can't provide electricity. We want them to do that. They are, you're right. They're the only ones that can do that in the Georgia Power territories. But they need to do that through a subsidiary like we've done for AGL back then, so that there is fair competition between what they do, what they put in, and the open market. That's all it is. We're not, this would not, of course, we're not doing anything here but recommending, but if that legislation were to pass out of number 6, it wouldn't prevent Georgia Power from providing that electricity. It would just require them to do it through a subsidiary, like AGL has to do. We made it so that that gas would have to be provided through a subsidiary if AGL decided to sell gas themselves.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
Mr. Lucas.
we got hoodwinked on AGL. Everybody wonder, why would folks who are in the business decide to do what they did. Well, you ended up with the other supplier, Scanner and all of them. But you had to get AGL to do the pipes and put the meters in. They were the only somebody that could do it. So we got hoodwinked. AGL passed it on to somebody else, but they still got paid. Only thing I'm saying is this. I'm in the business of providing power. That's what I'm in the business of. If I'm going to sell to a entity for charging, why would I sell under what I can do it for, period? Now, if you talk about the free market enterprise, it's always been competition. And usually, if you have something like this, which is new, gonna put a lot of folks out of business. They usually negotiate. They get down to the point. They negotiate what their rate gonna be because of the amount of energy that they're gonna use. And to me, for us to put a stipulation in, they got to set up a subsidiary. We're gonna get hoodwinked again.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just one more thing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean, we're talking, Chairman. Instead of tabling them or whatever the recommendation, I would recommend that we do what Chairman Jasper said, and we pass these things out, but note that there were discussions and disagreements amongst the members of the committee.
Okay, we got a motion to table. It takes precedent to table number 6 through 11 on our study committee recommendations.
Be heard, please.
Do we have a second?
Just one short comment.
Pridemore seconded it.
I would oppose this
Could she
move
second it again?
because while 6 and 7 and 8 may be what it is, it's just a point of contention. And I believe that we need to absolutely be sure that we're not allowing the utility companies to be in competition with the free market. But if we table all of those, then you get down to number 9. Number 9 is something that I think that should take a lot of concern to this group.
Right.
That we do not allow Georgia Power or whoever it may be to build into the rate base the cost of all of this extraordinary priced equipment. Because you as a consumer of whether you're Georgia Power or EMCs or MEAG, you may not use an electric vehicle. You may not ever have any idea. Personally, I don't think it's going to, I think you're going to see a lot of other choices. But I think it is wrong to charge my power bill for my house or my business for the build-out cost to chargers and these type of things by putting them under the rate base.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on that motion to table by Chairman Gooch. All those in favor to table, aye?
Aye.
So raise your hands, please, so we know. 1,
Point of order.
Point of order? Yes.
To the chair.
Can't count Lucas.
Oh, I didn't count Chairman Lucas.
Okay.
I didn't count Senator Lucas. You have
Senator
3.
Lucas, you're an ex-official member and your vote
Oh,
is not.
We're listening
I
to you.
apologize.
We're listening to you.
You and
We're
I can only
listening.
kick sand. We can't-
You're a man of wisdom.
There's 3 to table. Those against?
So,
Just time,
so you-
3 to 3.
3, it's 3 to 3.
So the chairman time, we can break the time. I vote to table.
Come on, Jasper.
Oh, yeah.
Man,
I like my idea, to, as Chairman Parsons said, to add the statement, to not table it, but add that statement to it. Move along.
So we're still tied.
figure out what
The motion died.
Let's see. Did you cast a
bring
vote?
me and Lucas in the fight now.
I said, no. No.
And so,
It was still time.
Still tied.
Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd move that we do pass item number 6 as it's stated.
just table.
No,
No,
and that died.
Locked up.
Let's hang on just a minute. We're
Consulting with the attorney.
consulting with our attorney.
This is turning it over cluster.
Go ahead. Okay. So, in an effort to move this along, I'm going to change my vote to a yes to table on the condition that the comments that I made to be added to those comments, that there was a disagreement between the members on recommendations 6, 7, well, the whole section, and find that legislative process will have to do it. And I say that because, we went through, I'm going to address one point in this. We went through the last 4 months talking about this, and we never came to a really decision of how this could actually work to me. And I know we've struggled with it. We've talked to everybody that's out there in the room. And I don't know if it needs to come to the old way of sitting 6 people in a room saying we're going to figure this out. But it may have to come to that. But the motion passes to table.
Thank you.
Can I make one?
Chairman Cowser, we look forward to your Regulated Industries Committee meetings next session.
We got a good head start.
That's right.
Can I make a recommendation?
Yes, sir.
We need to reinstitute the committee because we gonna end up with some problems with this electrification.
Oh, I think you're right.
It's a new process. If I'm gonna get a vehicle, I'm gonna get a high because I get on the road after 300 miles, I got to have a way to get to where I got to go, so I'm gonna have some gas.
Thank you, Senator Lucas. We're going to move on to recommendation number 12. This is under the inclusion of alternative fuels. The study committee recommends that any legislative action taken concerning the electrification of vehicles be done with an understanding and appreciation for the potential of future development in fuel sourcing for vehicles. Furthermore, the study committee recommends that any legislative plan should include all alternative fuel types so that the state has a mechanism in place for collecting revenue on all fuel sources.
No conflict.
Pass.
Is there a motion?
Move.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Back on track. All right. Item number 13, under the PSC appeals of demand charges. The study committee recommends legislative action requiring the Public Service Commission to establish a process for an appeal by EV charging station owners of unwarranted and excessive demand charges on electricity purchased from regulated electricity providers for the purpose of resale for EV charging. Senator again. What's your number? We'll turn them
Number
all
10.
back. Yes, sir.
I think that the whole purpose of the Public Service Commission is to approve rates or not approve rates. And if they've approved a rate, they've taken all that into consideration. And you heard from Commissioner Pridemore, for me to let individuals go by and say, hey, I want to appeal that to this group that has set this rate would be chaotic at best.
So you have a motion?
I move to strike number 13.
So the motion is to turn down recommendation 13.
If I may on that.
Yes, sir. Chairman Parsons.
That's actually a recommendation that I put in, and it's not something I necessarily feel real strongly about, but the reason I put that in is that in all the meetings we had relating to Chairman Powell's bill, and since then, or any time I've met, nobody from Georgia Power or any place else, including the Public Service Commission, has really given me a good definition or a good explanation of how these demand charges work. How long they go into effect. Once the demand charge goes into effect on a small business, like a charging station, how long does it stay in? I mean, they can hit a demand, a certain amount of demand at a certain time, and they will have to pay that same charge then for an extended period of time when there's no reason for them to do that. And that's where this came from. I don't think there's been a good explanation, even to me as chairman of that committee, of how this demand charge works. I know that they made some changes over the years related to demand charges in relation to agriculture. I know agriculture is our largest industry, and I understand that, but they've been amenable to certain things for them, but it doesn't seem like they have any good feelings about helping these people in the open market with their with their moves to offer electricity charging, at their stations, out of the gas stations or convenience stores or whatever. And there needs to be some kind of certainty out of that, and there isn't. I have never been given any idea that there's any kind of comforts or any kind of certainty related to these charges, and that's what I mean. If you're getting them and you think it's more than it should be at a time that it shouldn't be, there should be some way to go to the Public Service Commission, which is part of their job, that we as the General Assembly gives them everything that they have, every responsibility they have, we give them through the General Assembly. Everything they do, we give them through the General Assembly, except for like 2 little paragraphs out of the state constitution. But they need to be able to go to somebody in the Public Service Commission and challenge those things, or at least appeal them. That's where this came from.
Thank you, Chairman Parsons.
I also have a question for Chairman Parsons, just for my education on this. Do they have that ability now, Chairman Parsons? I mean, to be a
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yes, sir.
We have a motion
Oh,
to deny this. Can we get a second? Then we'll have discussion. Is that not appropriate? Is there a second to the motion? Somebody say yay or nay. We have a motion to
I think the
deny.
rule says if nobody seconds, it dies with us.
I'm about to do that. We have a second. All right, so we have a second. Now, Chairman,
I just,
continue discussion.
Chairman Parsons, I just wish Commissioner Pridemore was here to answer this, but you know a lot about this. It's in your world. Does the Public Service Commission act in an appeals way now? I don't know that. Or would we have to, as you said, add that to their role of what they do?
I don't believe they do, but I couldn't say for sure. I don't want to say something wrong. I don't know that they do or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
Chairman Powell.
Chairman Powell, thank
Well,
you.
I certainly don't oppose Chairman Parsons' thoughts on 13. I think the committee should look at number 14, since so many of these recommendations are dovetailing each other, because I think 14, while it doesn't call for a hearing by the PSC, but it gets into the gist of things about how both consumer companies and electric suppliers could deal with the demand rates.
Okay. Any other comments?
If we can,
Yes, sir.
if we can kill 13, you can pass 14, and it's a great, 14's a good recommendation.
Chairman Cowser.
I got a comment, and I don't know where I stand on either one of these, 13 or 14, but I comprehend 13 applies only to Georgia Power. And so you would be giving these electricity providers, whoever's charging up EVs, the right to appeal if they feel like they're being charged too much by Georgia Power. But if they so happen to be in an area where the power is provided by an EMC, they have no such right. If I'm reading this correctly, and that troubles me. And it bothers me that there's a little bit of apples and oranges here, because the ultimate electrical vehicle electricity consumer is not geographically tied to where it is produced. I make the example that could be from out of state, but we also have such mobility within this state. So if I'm driving from Athens and I'm in Jackson EMC or Walton EMC territory, or in some cases Georgia Power territory, depending on where I'm, charging up, I have different rights and things, and I don't know that we are addressing that now. We got 70 more things to go, so maybe we do later. But I'm just cognizant of all of these things. If you are putting certain burdens on Georgia Power, that applies only to their territory. Now you're creating even another tier of competition between the convenience stores and the Georgia Power people and all the however many EMCs we got now. It's
another reason to kill 13.
Okay, any other comments?
And 20 minutes after we get done, I'll have you understanding what difference between actual demand, billing demand, and rate
We're going to
structures.
call the question on the motion that's been seconded to kill number 13. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 14, the study committee recommends all electric suppliers offer an EV charging rate that collects electricity costs through a volumetric charge, kilowatt hour. The purpose of this legislation would be to address demand charges associated with EV charging. The study committee recognizes that electric utilities may need to vary their rates by time of day or real-time pricing capability.
To pass.
Moved.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. You want to start?
The next one is EV charging rate and rate structure. 15, the study committee recommends legislative action requiring the Public Service Commission to determine an EV charging rate for electric suppliers under its jurisdiction. And 16, the study committee finds Georgia law should not prescribe a rate structure for commercial EV charging.
Adopt both of them.
Yeah, my recommendation certainly is to eliminate number 15, that the Public Service Commission determine charging rates.
You want to eliminate that?
Yeah, to me I do, but that's why we're here, just have discussion.
Can I ask you a question, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Our Public Service Commission, they're talking about under its jurisdiction.
That's just
So-
Georgia Power.
Pardon?
That would be just Georgia Power, right?
That's right. And that's where, for me, I think that's what you
the
want to happen. Why would you be opposed to the Public Service Commission establishing a rate for charging for those that are under their jurisdiction? What would be if they're a separately owned, not in the rate base, but if they start a deregulated, folks, you could kill it and just say, no, it's deregulated, and they can set whatever they want to. But this would be one of those things that for me, you only tell them if there is such an animal as a electric vehicle, because we couldn't make that decision prior. But if there is built into the rate base, I think you want to have the Public Service Commission have that ability to do it. I'm not recommending that you have those electric vehicles built into the rate base, but if they are, then the Public Service Commission surely needs to regulate it and put a number on it.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Yeah,
Chairman Robbins.
I think our problem is by tabling what was tabled, that as we move through here, none of this is going to connect the way it would normally connect, because we're talking about the Public Service Commission, which regulates a particular, with Georgia Power, and by tabling that, there was no discussion of Georgia Power, how they would set up. So by having those tabled, this is, in my understanding, the way the report will be set up, and I'm sure Legislative Council will have something to do with that, is 6 through 11 will not even be in the report, because all it will say is that they were tabled. If anybody wants to know why they were tabled, they would have to go to the minutes to read it. Anything that is not passed, recommendations not passed, will not be in the report. Only the recommendations that the committee puts forward will be in the report, which I think is going to make this an extremely convoluted and disconnected study committee report, because I'm afraid that some people sitting at this table and some people sitting in the room are confusing a study committee report with legislation. And all we're doing is making recommendations. And I'm sure somewhere if they're not digital, there's a warehouse somewhere with a whole lot of final study committee reports that if it catches on fire, it will burn for years, because a lot of these study committee reports are never acted on anyway. And I think this is an extremely important study committee. So I think for any of these connectivities to make way as we move forward, there would have to be some action of going back and having that conversation of the items that were tabled.
Well, it's too, I certainly looked at this, Chairman Ginn, is that the Public Service Commission does the rate case that they're involved with right now, and they will be setting rates for the whole system. And EV would be bought, electricity for that shouldn't be defined just as EV. It should be defined, to me, as electricity that's bought by an individual who may choose to sell it, but may choose to run the refrigeration in the convenience store with it also. That's the way I looked at it.
It's a rate for electric suppliers. It's not for retail. If I'm Quick Trip and I want to go build a gas station or electric charging stations, then they're not under the Public Service Commission. But if you allow, and this is why I say you have to go back to whatever happens with that section that we tabled. But for me, if you allow for that to be put in the rate base, what I'm telling you is that 15 says the Public Service Commission can set that rate, and that's what they're really supposed to do. They're supposed to look out for the public, set that rate. For me, if you don't allow and it's the deregulated portion of Georgia Power, then what happens with 15 is they're not regulating that, and it's deregulated, so it's not under their authority. So for me, you don't know what's going to happen with the ones we tabled, but for me, I think that 15 makes a lot of sense in light of which way you're going to go, whether you're going to allow Georgia Power to do deregulated or regulated. And if it's regulated, that's what the Public Service Commission is supposed to do. It's not saying that the Quick Trips of the world, the other chargers, those people that are in private business, the PSC doesn't have any rate for them. It's for the electric suppliers.
Right.
Which includes the EMCs.
No, they're not regulated by the Public Service Commission.
They are. They're not for rates.
For rates.
But they are under their jurisdiction.
For certain things.
Mm-hmm. So you would want to regulate the EMCs under this recommendation?
Not their rate.
That's not what
Okay.
not what the
Cancel
language
it
is.
then. Just you know what I'm talking about. You know what it's got to say.
I can't ever imagine what you're trying to say.
I've told you before.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
I would highly recommend we oppose this, but we'll keep talking.
Okay. So just so I understand, so what Chairman Ginn's, I think, wanting, so you'd have a separate meter, Chairman Ginn, I'm asking you. So you'd have like a separate meter for the EV charging station, and there would be an established approved rate for that, and then a meter to service the restaurant or the store or the car dealership or whatever is also on that property. Is that?
What's been proposed by the industry is they want to do a separate rate for the vehicles being charged. And from my understanding is that would be, if Georgia Power is serving that, we want Georgia Power and the Public Service Commission to set that rate. So they work together and set that rate for the chargers that are in production out there for, an enterprise.
I think what I heard.
But for me, I don't want the Public Service Commission to be able to regulate the EMC's rates. That's up to the EMCs. They set all their rates all over the state. So that's where, for me, as long as it's the investor-owned, the Public Service Commission should manage that rate.
Let's say you have a C-store and you want to put in an EV charging station. It doesn't cost Georgia Power anymore to deliver electricity to run the refrigerators, the coolers in the C-store.
They set those rates now for the C-store business.
Than it does. I mean, I don't know why the rate would be different.
Well, for an EV, they may do real-time pricing that they don't do at the convenience store. You don't know what's going to happen and what people are going to want to do. But in order to develop a real-time pricing rate, that would be an option that the Public Service Commission might want to do to encourage.
Wouldn't they have to approve that anyway?
That's what we're saying they're going to allow. We're going to allow them to do that. The Public Service Commission.
But can't they do that now?
Well, that's what this is reiterating what we do right now. But we don't have a true real-time pricing rate for EVs.
Okay, where are we at? Well, we have a motion. We don't have a motion. We don't have. I'd like to make a motion to remove number 15.
Second.
We have a motion to deny 15 and a second, and we've had quite a bit of discussion. Any last comments? All in favor of the motion to deny number 15, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say aye.
Opposed, say aye.
Opposed
to the motion.
Nay.
The motion is
Nay.
to deny. And we have a yay to support the motion. Now I'm asking for the nays.
Nay.
So we have 2 nays and 1 yay. Let's see a show of hands on the
I'm
yays.
thoroughly confused.
The motion is, listen up. The motion was to deny number 15. Deny it means remove it, strike it. It will not be a recommendation. There's a motion and a second. So if you are in favor of removing number 15, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. If you want to vote against that motion, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. The chairman and I will vote. I will vote with the chairman's motion to remove. And you obviously voted too, so.
Yes.
Number 15 is removed. All right, number 16, the study committee finds that Georgia law should not prescribe a rate structure for commercial EV charging. Is there a motion to approve number 16?
So moved.
Motion by Senator
Second.
again, seconded by Chairman Jaspers. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Moving along. All right, under GDOT plan, number 17, the study committee recommends that the Georgia Department of Transportation consider the impact of free markets providers of EV charging stations, either already in place, planned, or projected to be in place by 2035 when determining the placement of stations funded with federal grants. Is there a motion?
To pass. Motion. Second.
All right, motion and second. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving along. Number 18, the study committee encourages the Georgia Department of Transportation to make every reasonable effort to partner with free market EV charging entities in the placement of federally funded stations.
So moved.
Motion, second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motor fuel tax recovery. Number 19, the study committee recommends either A, the continued study and consideration for at least a year of a pay-per-mile mechanism to fund roads and bridges, or in the alternative, B, legislative action in 2023 supporting a pay-per-mile mechanism for funding road and bridges, which shall be either A, voluntary system requiring yearly mileage provided from the onboard computer of each registered vehicle, or B, a fixed registration fee set artificially high as to incentivize option 1.
Motion to abandon number 19.
Is that your recommendation, Chairman?
I couldn't have worded it so carefully.
Okay.
It's not mine. There is a motion to deny,
abandon.
motion to strike number 19. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Chairman Jaspers. Any discussion?
Yeah, that was actually my recommendation.
Don, you gotta tell me what you want, man.
Flushed him out, flushed him out.
I was having a good time recommending by this time when I put that one.
Sounds like a lawyer may have drafted that, Chairman Parsons.
That's all. No.
All right, we're going to move to deny by Chairman Ginn. All in favor of denying recommendation number 19, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I like it, but, I like it.
We struck it. Number 20, the study committee recommends that any legislative action taken to recoup the shortfall of the collection of the gas tax be carefully constructed so that emerging technology and fuel sources can easily be incorporated into a formula or process.
So moved.
Motion and second.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor of number 20, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. 21, the study committee supports the Georgia Department of Transportation's pilot program on taxing motorists based on vehicle miles traveled. Is there a motion?
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. The study committee supports the creation of a fair methodology to replace the loss in revenue from motor fuel taxes.
Mr. Chairman, may I touch on that one just a little bit? That is already in current law. I think, House Bill 170 addressed that very clearly. And if I am not mistaken, so I would make a motion to remove 22.
Would you accept a motion to amend it?
Absolutely.
And take out the word creation, but support the enforcement?
That would be a very good addition.
Okay. Is everybody clear on the amendment? On 22, it would read, the study committee supports the enforcement of a fair methodology to replace the loss in revenue from motor fuel taxes. I'll make that motion to amend.
Second.
Second. All in favor of the motion to amend, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Now, back to the motion. Is there a motion to support 22 under that amendment?
So moved.
Motion by Chairman Carson. Is there a second? Corbett, sorry.
That's close.
Started with a C. There's a second? Is there a second to his
Second.
motion? Okay.
Excuse me.
All in favor,
Yeah.
say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I was thinking about something
The
else.
study committee, number 23, the study committee supports the creation of a new EV tax existing independently and in addition to the current annual fee levied against all EVs registered in Georgia. The study committee recognizes that an excise tax on energy consumed by an EV motorist at public charging stations would not capture revenue from motorists charging at home. A little bit of duplication of some of the others, but discussion.
I'd make a motion to eliminate number 23.
Motion to deny 23. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Chairman Parsons. Any other discussion? All in favor to deny 23, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We deleted 23. 24, the study committee supports a methodology where Georgia residents can choose to pay either, 1, the current annual fee levied against EV owners, or 2, pay taxes based on the kilowatt hours consumed at home, either through A, measured by an independent metering system installed at the homeowner's expense and reported by the electric supplier, or B, estimated by receipts provided to the tax commissioner's office.
Whose recommendation was that, Mr. Chairman?
I could not tell you without going back, but it doesn't really matter.
The question is what are you doing estimating? How would that work? I'm trying to figure out. That
Sort of
doesn't,
like your tax return, Senator.
it ain't an estimate, I promise you that.
Sounds like there may have been Gooch's.
It ain't an estimate, it's real numbers.
I would move that we table that.
Table or remove
That
it.
sounds like the biggest bureaucracy.
I would encourage us to deny this one and repeal this one.
Second.
Yeah, I think so.
Would you do that for us?
I will.
So there is a motion to deny
Second.
number 24, and there is a second. All in favor of denying, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's dead. 25, the study committee recommends legislative action requiring the Georgia Department of Transportation to conduct a study or analysis to determine a fair road usage charge for all EVs operating in Georgia. A, the study committee recommends legislation requiring the Georgia Department of Transportation to issue a report for proposal for the study to be conducted in calendar year 23. The study committee recommends legislative action requiring the study to be funded from the state's general fund and appropriated by the Georgia General Assembly in the 2023 legislative session. Item C, further, the study committee recommends legislative action requiring the study to include typical methods of tracking and collecting road usage data and fees as are applied and utilized internationally, including the United States.
So moved.
That was my recommendation. So we have a motion.
Oh, you remember that?
This is your,
Yes.
Yeah.
So moved.
And a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, motion carries.
Now the horse is in front of
Number 26, the study committee finds that fees such as road usage charges or vehicle miles traveled should be comparable to the fuel tax paid by an equivalent conventional vehicle.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, motion carries. Go ahead.
okay, on 27, permitting, licensing, and inspections. The study committee recommends legislative action requiring commercial and other charging stations to be permitted or licensed by the state. Permitting, licensing, and inspection requirements should ensure accuracy of energy consumption measured at a meter, safety, and accurate accounting of charging stations and their locations. 28, the study committee recommends legislative action requiring all,
One at a time, or?
I think they're all connected, because this is one I put in, Chairman. And then if you just go through these three right here. The study committee recommends action requiring that the inspection be conducted by the Department of Agriculture, as they currently inspect fuel pumps. And of course, the study committee recommends adequate funding to support these inspections. 29, the study committee recommends the permitting and inspection of different intervals to be differentiated from those charges that are free to consumers. That's not mine. And the study committee on 30 recommends further discussion of the department's revenue ability to collect state and road taxes from the sale of electricity or other sources of power transportation. Don't know about that one. in the introduction of legislation to support the Department of Revenue in their efforts to collect taxes. The 27 and 28 are mine, Chairman again. Go ahead.
So moved. Do pass.
Okay, let's go 27 and 28. Do a motion.
Do them one at a time.
Okay, do them one at a time. Number 27, have a motion. Do a second.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed?
I had a question,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
And I missed the vote, sorry.
Sure.
This would not override local zoning or,
No, what I felt when writing this part of it, Chairman, was that somebody needs to oversee them. And we need to know where they're at to not only the three things that we talk about, accuracy, sold, but also we know where the tax money will come from. And so if a county wants to put one in or denies the charging station due to zoning, this does nothing to do with that.
I'm in favor of it.
So we had a split vote.
We had a vote and then we kind of paused.
Sorry.
Any
You had
opposed?
some no's.
No?
Okay.
Is that one no?
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
27.
I'm a yes now, but
Okay.
I'm curious what Bill was thinking, but anyway, he can tell me later.
Okay. Okay, well, we need a motion on 28.
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Do you think the new ag commissioner is capable of doing this?
I think the new ag commissioner, due to his training in the Senate, is absolutely capable
You
of
think
it.
it may be over his
He'd been
head?
house trained, you know he would.
Will it be over his head? That's,
Lots
Yeah.
of things are over his head.
I'm not going there. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No. Maybe.
One no.
One no.
Okay. Number 29, the study committee recommends permitting and inspection intervals for paid public charging to be differentiated from those chargers which are free for consumers to use.
Did we take care of that in item one, when you added that in one? On the first page?
Which one are we looking at?
Not inspections and
And you
permits.
said for-
No, it says inspections and permitting,
Okay.
Chairman. I would be an opposition to 29. I will make a motion for no to 29. And the reason is, I think, any kind of interval that's changed from what they normally are will add a little confusion, but also it's safety and accuracy that have to be addressed.
Exactly right.
So we need a second for a
Second.
second. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, those for it, aye. Aye. Any opposition? Hear none, it passes.
Mr. Chairman, I want to ask one question on these chargers, because, you see people at gas stations drive off with the nozzle still in the car. Said and I'm seeing these electric chargers that are put out, and there's nobody there, nobody supervising. Said that's where this will come into effect, because there are going to be people that are going to drive off with that.
That's when they
connection.
become wireless chargers.
Yeah.
Ooh, clever. Oh, my.
Thank you.
Easy.
Got Abbott and Costello. So
Oh, my goodness. Number 30, the study committee recommends further discussion and study into the Department of Revenue's ability to collect state and local federal taxes from the sale of electricity and other sources of power for transportation. Furthermore, the study committee supports the introduction of legislation to support the Department of Revenue in their efforts. No. For me, I think, I've been in discussions with Revenue. I don't know that this is necessary. I think we're moving that way, and I think we could delete this one and no
You got the
problem.
Department of Transportation looking at that right now. So.
And Revenue, we
Yeah.
all are.
Plus, we handle that through the appropriations
Right.
process every year, so I agree.
So need a motion to eliminate number 30.
So moved.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor, removing 30. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
We have one no?
No.
Okay. Next one, on number 31, public safety training. The study committee recommends that public safety officers and first responders be adequately trained in handling motor vehicle accidents involving electric vehicles, and training materials be created and distributed statewide by our Public Safety Training Center.
We hope they
Not
are.
my recommendation.
Do you have a comment on it there, Chairman?
Well, no, and I think it goes without saying, they have to be trained on it. And of course, that's going to be another expense that'll have to be looked at for appropriations to develop that program, because I know on the fire side, these vehicles are extremely dangerous. There's a handle where you can disengage the battery and the electrical portion of this vehicle, but if it is damaged in the crash, then there's going to be some very precarious work needing to be done to make sure that the victims of the crash and those trying to rescue them aren't hurt, and it's going to tie up interstate traffic and things of that nature. So I think the training is an absolute necessity, and we're also at some point going to have to look at, from a local government standpoint, of funding for special equipment to be used at these crash scenes involving these vehicles. But as I agree with many on this committee, this is something we're going to have time to address as we slowly move into the EV universe.
Mr.
So
Chairman.
is that a motion to?
I can't make a
accept-
motion.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
would we need to amend it and add like on end of 28 where it says further, the study committee recommends adequate funding to support this training?
Certainly.
Where it's at least stated.
So say that again, say that,
So,
Chairman Corbett.
further, the study committee recommends adequate funding to support this training. Would that be
Second.
appropriate to make that amendment?
So he's saying the second sentence from number 28?
No, we're in number 31.
Just using that language.
Exact same language.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So the exact same language, that's the second sentence of number 28, we would apply it to number 31.
Okay.
So that everyone has the words in front of them.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Would you like to make a motion?
I'd like
Doing
to
that?
make a motion to amend it to add that.
Do you have a second?
Make a second, please.
I'll second it.
Second, Mr. Walker.
I'll go out there on a limb.
Okay.
He needs a lifeline.
Those in favor of the amendment by Chairman Corbett, aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, amendment passes. So on the, do we have a motion to accept number 31?
I'll make a motion.
Corbett, second.
Second.
Okay, we've got, any discussion? Those in favor of 31, aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? It passes.
All right, number 32, battery recycling. The study committee recommends legislative action mandating that electric vehicle batteries be recycled.
Ooh, mandating.
I don't think you can, that's,
Is there a motion?
let's do not pass.
Motion, do not pass. Thank you.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor? Any discussion first? Any discussion on that? All in favor of do not pass, number 32, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
So there was one dissenting vote. Okay, so the motion was to kill number 32, you got it?
right, so you would not have to recycle a battery.
So you would not
Just throw 'em in
mandate it? The-
Throw them in a landfill.
Well, they can be
Or in the
used-
backyard?
They need to be used for other things.
In Athens.
So the motion carries.
To
The
stay.
recommendation will be deleted. Next item is under GP EMC Power Supply Reliability. Number 33, the study committee encourages power suppliers to keep a keen eye on the growing, not just a big eye, but a keen eye on the growing demand for EV charging and plan accordingly for future generation and power supply reliability.
Do we really think that's necessary?
So are you making a motion to do not
Strike
pass?
it.
All right.
Strike it.
Motion and second to strike number 33. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to strike, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's struck. That keen word got us, didn't it? Number 34 is under freight and logistics expansion. The study committee finds that a portion of the EV fee revenues paid by commercial vehicle operators should be dedicated to support freight and logistics expansion in Georgia. And that was a recommendation of mine. We are looking for additional revenues to help the DOT for the expansion of freight and logistics. A lot of these heavy trucks are being converted to electric powered vehicles. And so as we move into this, we're going to be looking at additional fees for that purpose. This would be one of those areas where 80,000-pound trucks should not be paying a $200 a year annual fee like a car does today, so.
Where will the EV fees go to anyway?
Well, that's
the
not,
EV
that's
fees
not
go to-
clarified yet either. I think it should all be dedicated to roads and bridges, but, you know, that's yet to be determined as
Let
well.
them take it out and put it where they want to, but we don't need to specifically dedicate
This is
it to
this
it.
was a recommendation, just to help
Well,
fund freight and logistics. Yes, sir.
I'm just kind of wondering about that now. We haven't even established, I mean, we have an EV fee now.
$200.
We're talking about changing it to something that's a better way to do it. Why would it just be the EV fee? Why would it not be the fee that we collect for, I mean, part of what we collect for roads and bridges? I mean, why would it just be directed toward EVs? I mean, I'm missing something, I'm sure, but what?
The EV fee for a heavy truck, let's say an 18-wheeler that weighs 80,000 pounds, the fees would be increased according to weight or to truck size.
It addresses commercial vehicles,
And
not
so
all.
those
Paid by
revenues, those
commercial
additional
vehicles.
revenues would be directed for the freight and logistics
Okay.
plan. We have a plan that's coming out of GDOT this year that's going to require billions of dollars for a future expansion of our roads and bridges.
I might ask a question. I'm certainly not a trained attorney, but I know that over the last 34 years, I continue to have always heard that we can't dedicate funds. It takes a constitutional amendment to dedicate revenue.
Well, we have done that in multiple places in the code.
I think it's early,
I think.
Chairman.
But we can move on from this.
And
if
I
there's
and I
not
think what the chairman's
consensus.
referring to is when we're doing the tires and all of those kind of funds that we had to do constitutional
Hotel
amendment.
motel fees of
Right,
$5 per
right.
night, the EV fees, all of that is dedicated revenue. If for whatever reason we don't appropriate it
Constitutionally
for the
dedicated.
DOT, then it is repealed by
Yes, sir.
by code.
And I think what this right here is some of the confusions is it's so far out as a hypothetical because we haven't even come up with any fees and things like that. And we can look at the impact that normal passenger vehicles are going to have. We talked about that based on the torque of these new electric vehicles. They're going to have a much greater impact as far as tire wear and road wear. And so I think we may be way early in this. I think as the revenue department sets those fees, I think that would be the time that we could discuss allocation of those who have a greater impact. But I think all these vehicles are going to have a substantial impact beyond what we're having today with the combustion engines that are traveling.
I would move to table this and we'll discuss it
And you
in
have
the
done that
near
before,
future.
Mr. Chairman.
Second on the table motion, all in favor of tabling number 34, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's tabled. Thank you all. All right, number 35 is at-home charging rates. The study committee finds that rates established by House Bill 170, the 2015 legislative session, remains unchanged.
I didn't know we taxed.
What does that mean?
$200.
The study committee finds that rates established by House Bill 170, the rates being
$200 fee.
The $200 for the car, it's a $300 fee for a commercial electric vehicle.
Why would we want to tie our hands on that?
I don't know who, I can't recall who sent this, but I would strongly oppose this one. So is
I'll
there a
make a
motion to
motion, we
deny?
strike it.
Thank you. Motion to strike, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Chairman Parsons. All in favor of the motion to strike, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's struck. Next category, charging class conceptualization.
And,
You wanna
Mr.
do
Chairman,
that?
I'll jump on that one. Brad Thomas put this in here as it's more of an education thing for, I guess, for committees and other people looking at this idea down the road and, you know, where charging occurs, kind of, you know, he's an engineer and drew it out, so it would just be a good thing to look at on where charging occurs, if it's public transit, destination, fleet charging, and just as an informational, it has really no policy changes, but really just as a, just to be able to look at and determine where it goes for those who aren't part of the study committee that's met for 3 months. And I think it's just a good summary of the types of charging.
Information only.
You say so.
Yep. He's on both of our committees, so, you know, and I'd like to make a motion to accept 36.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Those in favor of accepting 36, aye. Any opposed? It
Number
passes.
37, direct sales. The study committee finds that there is not sufficient cause at this time to overturn the longstanding automobile dealership franchise structure that dealers and consumers have come to depend upon,
So moved.
So moved.
Pass.
The next one.
which is in direct conflict with the next one, but we will get to that next. So there is a move to adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of number 37, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Number 38, the study committee recommends legislative action to eliminate the direct sales of EVs in the state of Georgia by placing a one-year sunset date on the current carve-out. Y'all understand this is known as the Tesla carve-out. So,
And Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Under discussion, the reason that is referred to that is because that's what that is.
thank you.
Yeah. And I'll take the old boy into the minutes, but yeah, that's exactly what it is.
All right. Thank you for that.
I'd like to ask a question about that.
Yes, sir.
You know, the litigation that Tesla filed against the state a few years ago to allow them to do it, and they wiggle their nose under the camel's tent to, that only pertain to them. By passing this, would this open up a can of worms that we don't necessarily want to open up? Because I know that while a lot of us are like myself, are strong believers in the franchise system, since that is probably the second biggest investment most people make next to their house, they need to have a place to have these things serviced. And we don't want them out there like Teslas laying in people's garages because hell, won't nobody come fix them, you know. So, you know, do we really need this, or is this going to open up a tent?
And I'd like to jump in with Chairman Powell on this. You know, we've become the EV state, and I think this 38 sends a kind of a negative message out there to, you know, all the great work Governor Kemp and his group and economic development done toward EVs. I just think it sends a bad message out there. And I know there's agreements, longstanding agreements between auto dealers and Tesla at arm's length to continue as they're going. But I'd like to, I would like to make a motion to remove
Motion
number
to
38.
remove number 38. Is there a second? Does everyone understand what 38 does? Okay, second. So this, if we recommended this, we would be recommending that we no longer allow direct sales of Teslas in Georgia
After 1 year.
after 12 months.
Correct.
So that's the recommendation. The motion is to deny the recommendation. Okay, make sure everybody knew what we're voting on.
And
So there is a motion and second. Discussion.
discussion I understand
Lewis is a twist.
I understand Chairman Powell's concern as far as litigation goes. I believe the litigation would not necessarily be against the state. I think the litigation may be against the parties that the lawsuit was involved in. But even that being said, we have courts for a reason, we have attorneys for a reason, and sometimes litigation is the way to go. Because if I were another company wanting to come in here and do direct sales, then what's stopping me from hiring 18 busloads of attorneys and challenging, saying that Georgia's required to do direct sales? And as far as, and I greatly appreciate the hard work that Governor Kemp and everybody else has done to make Georgia the probably the leading state in the country dealing with EVs. But prior to that, and in my district, there's a huge auto manufacturer there, and they make Kias, and they employ thousands of Georgians from West Georgia, and they employ as many from East Alabama, and they do not participate in direct sales. They establish dealerships, they give jobs to kids coming out of tech school and everybody else. Tesla has got a cherry here in the state of Georgia, and that's what they've got. I've got friends that own Teslas, and on recalls, they're sitting in lines waiting months and months and months for them to give them a phone call and schedule them a time that they can have the recall problem that was caused by the manufacturer addressed by Tesla. I think if you want to get rid of this because you like Tesla's carve-out, I respect that. I really do. And I don't think there's anybody on this committee that has more respect for Chairman Powell than I do. And if I had to go in a fight, he'd be the exact person I'd want to go in there with me. But but that being said, fear of litigation can never be the reason why we do anything up here, because what we do is we do what's right, and we get in the courtroom and we fight it out in there and leave the blood on the floor in there. On the study committee, our job is to take care of jobs in Georgia and to take care of the people that work hard in Georgia and that pay our salaries. And that's the people that are out there doing the job, and it sure's heck it in Tesla.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
I certainly do appreciate the comments from my friends from this end, but I would also remind them that some of us have got a saying about going to a whorehouse or a courthouse.
Chair,
And sometimes litigation brings up things that you get some things that you don't want from these courts.
we,
Hey, Lucas,
We're
will
gonna
you be
move-
on my team in that fight?
we're going to move on. We have another question or a comment from Representative Fry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I definitely appreciate all the work that the governor has done to get the EV business in Georgia. But I think that a carve-out needs to have a sunset. And I think it sends a signal to the folks that are investing in Georgia that we are being fair and not picking winners and losers. And I can't see why it's so difficult for a company as large as Tesla just to build one building in one city in this state and call it a dealership. And so I just feel like we need to not pick winners and losers, and we need to level the playing field, and that shows respect to Rivian and Kia that do not have direct sales. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. My comment would only be that we did discuss direct carve-outs or for direct sales, but we never discussed specifically eliminating a business plan that's already in existence in Georgia. So I would hope that we wouldn't pass this today, but if you wanted to introduce that bill independently in January, you obviously have that right, and then you can discuss it with your colleagues in the House or in the Senate. And there'll be a lot of discussion in Chairman Kauser's committee meetings for that reason. But I would hope that we would not come out of this room today saying we're going to pick one business in Georgia and put them out of business in a year. And that would be devastating their business model. If you said 5 years from now, that might be a different story, but I wouldn't support that at this point either. I don't think that was the purpose of this study committee, in other words. So I would support the motion to strike it.
Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would just say this, if we don't have enough information right now on some of these issues that we tabled, because we haven't had enough time to review them, I don't think that we have enough time, that 1 year sunset on this would be enough time to actually make a decision on whether or not we should act on this or not.
Okay.
I mean, 1 year, you know, that's pretty quick. We don't have enough time, don't have enough time to look at some of these things that we've looked at now for months. I think 1 year would be way too soon, so I'd say, no, we don't do that.
Thank you.
And,
So
Mr. Chairman, if I
yes,
could,
sir.
under discussion, if I could say it again, if we put this in the study committee report that it's recommended, that's what it is. It's a recommendation. It may not move forever. Nobody in the House, nobody in the Senate may ever touch it.
Well,
It's just a recommendation that this committee says is something worth looking into. I respect the chairman, and with that, you know, I have no problem with gathering more information, looking at it, and seeing if we have other things out there that may be causing the same problem that this particular special gift to one company that belongs to the wealthiest man on the
Let's,
planet.
let's measure
would
the will
impact.
of the committee.
Yeah.
The motion is to strike number 38, correct?
Correct.
And there is a second, and there's been discussion. All in favor of striking recommendation number 38, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any opposed? So it's unanimous. It's struck. All right.
You the second signer on that, the Senate side?
I did not.
Oh, okay, just checking.
Believe it or not, I think we made it through all 38
Are we sure we don't want to open up any discussion on 6 through?
Make a motion to pull off table.
Might be a good idea.
Hey, that'll happen later on this evening, Chairman Powell.
So our final action today is to adopt the final report to include the action taken on the recommendations, to include the bills, the lines that were tabled. Everyone clear? So what we will do is adopt the entire report as presented, including the recommendations that passed or did not pass or that were tabled. So at this time, Chairman Jeffers.
So what now? So the ones we struck are gonna be in the report anyway?
They're showing it's
Yeah,
struck.
no.
The report will reflect that those were tabled. So it'll be similar to minutes of a meeting. It would show that we tabled those recommendations.
Is there differentiation between striking them and tabling them in your mind,
Struck
Chairman?
means we shot them down. Table means they're just sitting there.
Larry, it's like taking your sister to the
Let's
prom.
defer to our legal counsel. She'll explain how she's going to write this up. Catherine?
So what we'll do is adopt pages 1 through 69 in the binders you have in front of you unchanged. And then section 5 that we've altered today, we'll take those recommendations. Because we tabled numbers 6 through 11 in the recommendations page, I will include in the summary of the 6th meeting that there was significant discussion about, and then I will list what those recommendations were and a quick summary of the discussion had. So we will not lose any of that data, except for the things that were struck from the recommendations. And if the chairman would like, we can create a document and memorialize the recommendations that were presented to the committee if we feel like it would be beneficial just to have that as a record.
So moved.
So we have a motion from Chairman Jaspers, and you want to repeat your motion?
If I may get a clarification, I understand that the report will be printed with all the recommendations as approved, but we're going to go in there with another section, we're going to put the other issues that were tabled in there.
So on page 69 of the report you have in front of you, there's a quick summary that as a placeholder of what this meeting would be. And under that section, I will add details of this discussion and including these
So
recommendations
they're
that we
still
take.
out there for the world to see.
They're available to see, yes. But
no,
they are not
but they did
adopted.
not- they did not get adopted.
So could the committee not, I mean, that must be a Senate way of doing things. We don't do that in the House. If it's something we can't, we cut them out.
That's why we do it in the Senate too.
So we're moving it from, if you would open your binder on page 69, there's a whole section, section 4, that's study committee testimony, right? And it is essentially a report on what is discussed in the committee, right? But it's not something that the committee would be voting to say this is a recommendation.
It just basically says these were discussed.
It's just what we said.
They weren't approved.
That's right.
Just like the
Right.
previous
Somebody else.
69 pages documented what we discussed through the first 5
What
meetings.
do the two co-chairs decide? What do they want to do? They want to do it that way?
Absolutely.
Yeah, she does.
Why
I
would
do.
you oppose your legal counsel's opinion?
There was some, number 6 through 11, there were some things I'd like to see stay alive, but some need to die.
Everyone okay with the plan? It'll be in there for people to, basically, forget the vote for the recommendations. The discussion we had earlier is part of meeting 6. And the decision was not to take action on items 6 through 11.
That's right.
Therefore, it'll be memorialized in her minutes. So, and then
I
the
like that
action.
word memorialized.
It could be resurrected. It could be resurrected.
Okay.
All right, we're going to move on.
Chairman Gooch, I'd like to make a motion to accept the work of the Joint Study Committee on Electrification of Transportation and as presented to us today.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? All in favor of approval of the report, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. It's unanimous. All right. Any last comments? Committee members, anybody have anything they want to get off their chest?
Merry Christmas, Joe.
Chairman Walker?
Do you intend to maybe introduce more, to do this again next year, or?
There are a lot of issues that we did not address that
Because this
we
is
can't.
over, right, for this one?
This ends, today is the last day that you will hear from us on this topic. Until
Hallelujah.
January.
Is that a promise?
That's a promise. No, there will be an ongoing discussion, just like there are on other major issues. Freight and logistics is another one. We've been studying it for years. This is a very complicated issue.
And I almost feel like this needs to be kind of a
It
standing
could
joint
be,
study
it could be
committee.
extended next year, no doubt. So I want to thank all of you for your time and your efforts and truly your engagement, because it's been a learning experience. I want to also thank everyone in the audience today that's been here. Almost all of you have been in all 6 meetings. We appreciate that. It makes better policy when we all work together, and we look forward to celebrating Christmas season with you and then getting to work in January. See you all in Athens.
And
I'll
I just
give
want to
final comments
add,
to
you know,
Rick.
I just want to just brag on my co-chairman a minute. And, you know, I think this was a great little view of what the House and Senate relationship should be, working together. You know, we had ex officio members that Senator Gooch and I thought needed to be here. And it worked out great to have their income, you know, just their discussion along with us who were appointed. And I just think it's just a great little snippet of how it should work, and I appreciate all of y'all and what you did. And, you know, Merry Christmas, thank you, appreciate it, and we look forward to just talking more with you, probably in 5 minutes.
All righty. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.